So I had a most unpleasant experience this morning in telling a person who I consider to be a friend that I could no longer do gigs with them. Here's the reason. In the wake of all the political violence against Charlie Kirk, other conservatives as well, I've been very sensitive to any name calling along the lines of fascist. Calling anybody fascist, but mostly because it's being directed at conservatives and it's being directed at me, I'm very sensitive to it. I'm hurt by it. I'm scared by it. And when somebody who is hiring you to do a gig says, you know, MAGA is a fascistic cult, they're implying that people who are conservative who voted for Trump are fascists. The only logical conclusion of somebody being a fascist is that the fascist is not reasonable, cannot be reasoned with. The only method of reasoning with them is violence at that point, is the sword, is the blade, is the bullet, is the prison cell, right? Which is ironic. I think Jesus teaches us to be kind and loving to people, but he doesn't tell us to tolerate evil. And at no point does he tell people to take up arms against their brothers and sisters. That's more Muslim-oriented and Islam-oriented. So I'm going to read you this text exchange, and I'm just going to talk about it. So here's what I said. I said, "Hey, Leanne, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be able to do November 2nd. Charlie's death was made possible by people like you repeatedly buying into the lie that somehow Trump is a fascist, or that what Trump is doing is fascist. That conservative values are somehow fascistic. You are feeding into the already pervasive permission structure of violence against people like me. I have no interest in lending my talents to people who are actively taking part in inciting violence against me on the basis of my core beliefs and worldview." Leanne responded, "There is no violence from me or any of my like-minded thinkers. Democracy is government by the people, and that is why we have two parties. Charlie Kirk's death was committed by a sick individual and not endorsed by people like me. I disagree with Trump, but not with what Jesus taught to love one another. That means everyone, not just people who think and look like me. I'm not saying that my beliefs are better than your beliefs, but they are different. That's what I love about our country, that we can still practice free speech and not be shut down. I'm grateful to my forefathers who did fight for independence and will continue to stand up and speak out and vote, but most importantly, always to love one another." Well, I had some thoughts about that. There are a couple of things I didn't address that I'm sure stood out to you. I tried to focus on the big thing, which is that calling people fascist is the opposite of loving one another. It is a call to violent uprising, something that Jesus never taught. That's my whole point. Charlie was, in caps, killed by a side who believed that his ideas were fundamentally fascist. Look no further than the thousands and thousands of people who cheered his death on social media and at rallies. People are openly calling for the assassinations of more conservatives. Charlie was killed fundamentally for being Christian. He was kind. He invited people to the mic who disagreed. He never called for violence against anyone. He was misrepresented and lied about, and that's ultimately what got him killed. The promulgation of the myth that he and Trump and all conservatives are fascist. And I know social media is the bane of everyone's existence, but Leanne, when you post MAGA as a fascist cult, you are enabling everyone, all caps, to hate, all caps, me and my family, my wife, my brothers and sisters, literally. Please consider how your initial response fails to address the underlying maelstrom of political violence that has been enabled and acted out almost solely by bad actors on the left. You have enabled that through your post. It made me feel unsafe, disrespected, and unloved. And your response, while polite, fails to demonstrate an understanding of how posting MAGA is a fascistic cult creates a permission structure for violence against Charlie, against Trump, and against me. For that reason, I will not be playing November 2nd. Now, in the span that took, she took to social media and she said somebody chose to back out of playing with her. and completely left out my initial text and basically just left this flowery text of hers for her followers to follow, to read, but without my initial text, which I thought was very well written and very well spoken and very well articulated. And so I just posted the entire thread on Facebook, and it's amazing the number of people who don't think that their side is violent. And I'm open to having my mind changed here, but I'm pretty sure there have been no high-profile assassinations of Democratic lawmakers in the past 10 years. And if they have, it's come from the left. So this is the reality of what I live in and day out as a musician in Southern California who happens to be conservative. This is an example of the struggle that I go through, and I'm sure many of you go through your own struggles as well. But you can't just call people fascist and then expect it to be taken as anything less than a rallying cry to do something else other than debate. Okay? I'm not going to get into ICE. I'm not going to get into the deportations right now. I'm not going to get into any sort of political, ideological discussion. The whole point of this video was to show you that these people are also fundamentally misrepresenting what Christ said. Because in Romans, it is written that we are meant to be good citizens of the countries that we live in. That means following the laws of the countries that we live in. Fundamentally, there are laws that have not been enforced for the past 10 or 15 years in this country. And it's for the very specific reason that Democrats want to flood this country, for the census reasons, with illegal immigrants, so that way they can get more redistricting, they can get more votes, they can get more bodies in the Congress. And if you take away all of the illegal immigration, the Electoral College would probably swing about 10 points in favor of conservatives. So, that's kind of a political issue, but the fundamental thing that frustrates me here is, one, the whole kind of taking the Lord's name in vain, I think is what it is, saying that we're called to love no matter what, but then to simultaneously call people fascist, which is a call to violence against fascism, right? That's taking the Lord's name in vain, saying you love everyone, but saying we must fight fascism, okay? And then there's the other component, which is the misrepresentation of what I say. My context wasn't put in this post at all. And so now I've got she's very well connected. She's got 4,000 followers. She's got thousands of people who read this, who now think something about me. I don't know these people. I don't really care. But it just goes to show you how lies get promulgated. And I think the reason I'm making this is just so I can say my piece. But this is the reality we live in, folks. They're going to lie about you. They're going to besmirch you. They're going to take everything you say out of context. They're going to gaslight you and make you feel like you don't have a reason to be upset. You don't have a reason to be scared. You don't have a reason to be angry. And I do believe that we are required to love one another, which is why I have never, ever, and if I have, forgive me. To this day, though, I don't support violence against my political opponents. I can't pretend that I've never had bad thoughts that I shouldn't have. But I think to buy into those and to endorse those beliefs within yourself is what will tear this nation apart. What Trump's doing does not require a response from people like Antifa, from street thugs who are literally shooting ICE officers, who are attacking their vehicles, who are throwing stones on LAPD cop cars in LA. Like, none of that tracks with what is an appropriate response. We haven't really heard any case studies apart from Kilmar Abrego Garcia about any illegal immigrants being detained without due process anyways. And by the way, that was completely rectified. So they're just kind of grasping at straws. The No Kings rally was a complete dud. I mean, nobody really is buying it. So anyway, that's my piece.